is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast, the podcast for American football fans on the island of Ireland and indeed the UK and the wider Europe region. Coming to you after week 7, a very tired Jimmy English, just literally off a flight from Boston. Had a fantastic weekend in Pittsburgh. Big shout out to the Steelers for their hospitality. Absolutely fantastic night game in Acrisure Stadium, and good to get the win against the Jets as well, although that wouldn't be hard the way that the Jets are playing right now. Delighted to be joined as usual by Kevin Kelly and Stephen Twist Kearns. Lads, how are we doing? Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it could have been better. Obviously, Vikings taking their first loss this weekend against, honestly, probably the best team in the NFC right now. So it's kind of a happy, sad kind of moment. Obviously, can't be too unhappy to be beaten by a team like the Lions, but obviously, divisional game at home, can't be too impressed with that.
Not even one of the best teams in the NFC, probably one of the best teams in the NFL right now. Overall, the way they're playing, so it was definitely a great contest. Twist, we're going to talk about the Steelers game in depth in a while because I was there and got to witness it firsthand. But overall, first impressions from Russell Wilson's debut in the black and gold.
Don't buy your tickets to New Orleans just yet.
For
That's
the Super
all I'm
Bowl.
going to say. I've got a lot more to say in it, like later on when we talk about it. But calm down, Steelers Nation. We're not going to the Super Bowl just yet. Like, pump the brakes. But overall, weekend was 50-50. The Penguins got blown out by the Jets. The Steelers beat the Jets. So,
wait, there's a hockey team. There's a hockey team called the Jets as well.
Yeah, the Winnipeg Jets. I was like,
the Winnipeg Jets.
Team. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, hockey is good crack live. It was the last US major league sport that I hadn't got to, apart from soccer. The last kind of big US sport that I had yet to experience, and it did disappoint. Not a great result for the Penguins, but still a great atmosphere in Pittsburgh and a deadly weekend overall. Highly recommend anyone who hasn't been to Pittsburgh to make a stop there. But let's look at the games, starting off now with the Jaguars and Patriots in London. And Kev, the Patriots are in a bit of a hole right now, and Doug Peterson his job is safe for another week after his team came through in what was an actual true home game, as opposed to the game they played against the Bears last week, which was technically an away game. I know it's very confusing, but overall, Trevor Lawrence didn't do a huge amount. It was mostly his teammates. I mean, you have to hand it to Brian Thomas Jr., who is looking like, after all the talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. And the other, highly rated rookies, it's definitely kind of Brian Thomas that stood out in the week or so.
Yeah, look, I still have to give it to Drake May for putting on a performance like he did. In the end of the day, I don't think that New England fans can be. Look, obviously you're 1-5 now. It's not looking good, but in the end of the day, like, as far as QB potential has been in the last 4 years there in New England, this is probably the most kind of optimistic it's looked for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really I'm not going to look too much into Jacksonville because where do they go from here? I don't know what you guys think, but I just have to look at it and they're a non-contender in what is, I think, a weaker of the two conferences. In the AFC, I don't think the AFC is as strong as the NFC is, but again, I don't know. I just don't see the Jags. I don't see Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson. I just don't think they're relevant at the minute. And the game itself, it was a bit meh, to be honest. But look, either way, like you said, last game in London, it's great to have it there. Great to get involved and stuff, but they could definitely do with a bit better matchups there, I think.
Second last game of the international series overall so far this year. Obviously, we still have the game in Germany to come in November and to be honest with you, that's a game that even though we might go to as Gaelic Gridiron, I kind of even don't want to go, apart from the fact that it's in Germany and I've never been there before, because arguably two of the worst teams in the NFL right now in the Panthers and the Giants. Twist. It's going to be an absolute car crash to watch, I think, and we saw how badly each team performed this weekend. Daniel Jones was sacked 8 times, I think, by the Eagles, and just the same old Giants, same old Panthers. Andy Dalton had an absolute howler of a game, including that pick six to the Commanders. I mean, it's going to be dirt, right? Isn't it?
First of all, I still can't believe you haven't been to Germany at all. Like that's,
I know. I'm
that's
ashamed of
That's
that.
criminal right there.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the NFL is punishing German fans by giving them the Giants and the Panthers. I mean, I don't even like before like the season kicked off and you seen how bad Daniel Jones and Bryce Young were. I don't even think on paper that looked like a good game to give an international like venue. But yeah, I mean, we're looking at the Panthers. You know, they're maybe a week away before giving Bryce Young the starting job back, if not this week coming. Daniel Jones. I mean, Giants fans have to be like wondering when is he getting cut? You know, when's he gone? The organization had a choice the off season to give Saquon Barkley a big contract or Daniel Jones a big contract.
Mm-hmm.
You see what Saquon done to the Giants on Sunday with the Eagles. They made the wrong decision clearly there. For the season so far, Daniel Jones has thrown 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. All 6 touchdowns have come on the road. All 4 interceptions have come at home. The New York Islanders, the New York Rangers, and the New Jersey Devils have all scored points in MetLife Stadium. Daniel Jones hasn't in 2024. So, I mean, I don't know what, like, you bench him, you know, he's already been benched, you know, that has done nothing. Like, where does New York go from here? Like, is it a case of do they just stubbornly hang on to him, you know, because they have to eat that contract, you know, and just you can't have him sitting on the bench with that contract. So you stubbornly just let him play out that contract, or you cut him and just like take the dead money and move on from there.
Well, Saquon definitely came out the better of the on that deal with the. I mean, look at what he's doing with the Eagles now, and he insisted afterwards that it wasn't a revenge game against the Giants, but it clearly was. And you saw the way he was running. I think he had three carries of over 30 yards, something insane like that, and that.
Sorry, Jim. I don't necessarily think it was a revenge game, or like the fact that he ran as well as he did was because of it was a revenge game. I think it was just that the Giants are just terrible. Like they're just terrible.
He's got a good offensive line in Philadelphia.
He just ran through them. Like it wasn't even like it was the yards after contact. That's what gets me with Saquon in that game specifically. It's like, how does he get that much yards after contact? It just it boggles the mind how poor
he's built like a brick shithouse. That's why.
Yeah, I get that, but so was Derrick Henry, and like Derrick Henry doesn't have the same amount of yards after contact as Saquon does. So I'm just I just think that you look at the matchup there, the Eagles and the Giants. It just wasn't even fair. It really wasn't a fair match.
And you see Nick Sirianni on the sideline asking Saquon, did he want to go back in? He was like 14 or 15 yards away from his like personal best. And he was like, no, let the young guys go in and get the reps. Because he was like, if that was a revenge game, he would have been going in like, yeah, I'm going in to finish that off.
Yeah.
He was just there to play. He's just there to do his job and make the Giants look like the Giants, which is unfortunately is a shadow of their former self. Like Eli Manning on the Manning cast was doing like footwork drills. Like Peyton was doing to get him to do footwork drills for whatever reason, and all the comments on it were like, "Sign it, bring him back, come out of retirement, Eli. We need you back." Like Daniel Jones has done. Even Browns fans were commenting on it, going, "Come on, can we sign Eli? Bring Eli back."
Well, speaking of quarterback conundrums that have been resolved this week and parallels between two different teams, I mean, the Browns, in a roundabout way, got their quarterback problem somewhat fixed with that. I mean, look, you never like to see a player get injured. And it did look like a horrific injury to Deshaun Watson. And of course, you could say what you like about him, but you kind of have to feel from him. You kind of have to send some thoughts and prayers that direction. But the Browns are, Jim, okay. I mean, I know there's the whole thing there, but still, at the end of the day, it is a fairly nasty injury. I mean, he's unlikely to ever play again. I don't think.
No, you've already said his recovery is. We've already said his recovery is on the cards.
Not for the Browns anyway. So where did the kind of the Browns have effectively, through some sort of karmic path, rid themselves of Deshaun Watson, at least as their starting quarterback. But the thing is now, I mean, Dorian Thompson-Taylor clearly isn't the answer.
James
Jameis
Winston. The fans wanted
Winston,
James
yeah.
Winston.
Look, Jim, me and Twist were talking about this on Sunday evening, and obviously we seen the snap and all of that. It doesn't look great. Like, as people who played sports, like, we've all played sports, and it's like, Jesus, nobody likes to do that. And like, genuinely, like, as somebody who's like been in sports my entire life, I genuinely was just like, I feel bad for him. Like, I do feel bad.
And
for
the
him.
fact that it was a non-football injury as well. It was on a drop back.
I get that, but like you said, it's karma. Like, this is the world saying to you, like, we don't want you in this sport. And genuinely, I believe this to the core of my being, that the Browns should never have signed him. He should have been let loose. He shouldn't have been let back into the NFL.
No, I completely agree.
And like, that was something that Twist, like I said, I was totally on the train of like, oh, I feel bad for him. Like, I do feel bad for him. And then Twist was just like, oh, you have to remember all of the priors at this point, and you're just like, yeah, sorry, there's nothing I can like comprehend there where I'm like, yeah, he deserves a second chance, because he doesn't.
No.
And as a result of his injury going down, the Browns season is already off the rails. It's going to continue off the rails.
You could tell the Browns were already done when they traded what's his face to the Bills.
Cooper.
Exactly. Yeah. That was a clear indication of.
There's already teams have reached out and are fishing for Myles Garrett.
The Browns are in full-on fire sale mode now, because they know they're toast and they're going to tank. They already are tanking. They're going to continue tanking when whoever comes in at quarterback, and they're going to reset with whatever first-round draft pick they can get. That's what I think.
No matter what happens here in the next 2 years, like, whether Deshaun Watson plays another snap of football ever again, he is guaranteed $75.9 million for the next 2 years. Sorry, $75.9 million next year, and then the same again the year after that. So, like,
hobbled the franchise for 2 years.
How are you going to sign? How are you going to sign any sort of top level quarterback? Because you're not going to have the cap space for it. You're not going to have the cap space to have a good quarterback, a good wide receiver, and a good running back, and then have like an O line and have a defense as well. Like, they're completely tongue tied, and there's nothing they can do about it. They made
that's kind of what college quarterback who's coming into the draft this year is going to want to play for the Browns. Like, for example, Sanders' kid. You think he's going to sit by and go, yeah, I'll be drafted by the Browns? Think Deion's going to let him? No, there'll be a repeat of Manning not wanting to go to San Diego. There's that. Like, basically any quarterback right now, you might be considering, do I pull out and do another year in college to avoid possibly going to the Browns? Like, is that worth the risk? Especially with NIL money now.
Or the Panthers.
The Panthers, you have a little bit more wiggle room. They're not hobbled by massive draft pick loss, massive contracts. They have a little bit of wiggle room there. They have the ability to rebuild and give a rookie quarterback more chance than they gave Bryce Young. But with the Browns, you've lost multiple first round picks. I only think they have a first round draft pick this year because of the trade with the Texans. I actually forgot to look that up.
I think you're right there, Twist. But like you said, right? Any quarterback coming out of college right now, any quarterback in the league, it doesn't matter. So Deshaun Watson, this time next year, he's fully recovered. Then you've drafted a first round pick as a QB. They're still left in the same conundrum. Do you play your top paid quarterback? It's the same Daniel Jones situation. Obviously, a little different because of the injury. But do you not play your top paid player? And do you just write off your first round pick? 'Cause they're just in such a bad spot. I feel for the Browns fans. I absolutely feel for the Browns fans. But the front office and Kevin Stefanski, honestly, sickens me. Yeah, it sickens me that he was with the Vikings for so long. To see the way he's gone now, and to see the bile that comes out of his mouth is unreal.
He's gone from coach of the year to worst.
He was such a good coach when he first got there. He really was.
So as a result of the Browns are just the Browns. The Bengals, I honestly thought the Bengals should have got a bigger win, considering the state of the Browns on Sunday. But as a result, now the rest of the AFC North is shaping up to be quite interesting because the Ravens and Steelers are both 5-2. I mean, Twist, you look at the whole Steelers situation, you say what you want about Russell Wilson. He certainly silenced me with his performance. I mean, obviously I was there. I got to watch it live. There were some cheers when he came out of the tunnel, not a huge amount. Obviously, his first couple of drives, I mean, most of the first quarter was a bit slow. That was to be expected it was his first game in how long? Over a year, something like that. He would have had no in-game chemistry with his wide receivers. And as everyone heard, towards the end of the first quarter and throughout the second quarter, there were a lot of chants for "We Want Justin," and I may or may not have taken part in those. I'm not going to lie. But look, I have to put my hands up and say he's proved me wrong so far. Once he settled in, he showed some a nice connection with George Pickens. He did a couple of beautiful throws to George Pickens. He got George Pickens his first touchdown of the season, which is a long time coming. He had a nice throw to Van Jefferson in the end zone, and he rushed for one as well. So 3 total touchdowns, a QBR of 105, I think, something like that. So, I mean, overall, not a bad debut, and certainly better than we expected.
It was. I mean, as you said, slow start. I could hear the chants through the TV because the crowd, the Steelers fans are always loud. They're so loud that you can hear them on TV. You know,
Yeah,
when
it
you
was
get
nuts.
something.
It was nuts in the stadium.
I will say, just before I go into a couple of points I have on the Justin Fields and Steelers, and not just Fields, the Russell Wilson and the whole situation as a total, I got to say, MVP of the game is Beanie Bishop Jr.
Yes, 100%.
Like, out there, 2 interceptions. If the Jets hadn't assigned Devontae Adams, the Steelers would have been up another 7. Like, Devontae Adams stopped that pick 6. But Russell came out. He was very rusty to start with. He got better as the game went on. He threw some phenomenal throws. I will give him that. There was some contested catches that he knew Pickens could get. Mm-hmm. There's also a few lucky throws where he threw them up and like the juggling ball with Pickens. Like that was just pure luck. Like I wouldn't say that's Russ. I'd say that's a bad throw by Russ.
Yeah.
We put up 30 plus on the Jets, but it's the Jets.
Yeah.
So I'd expect similar next week against the Giants. And as I said at the top of the show, don't book any tickets or any flights or any hotels to the Super Bowl just yet, because unless Russell Wilson can do the same against the Ravens twice, the Bengals twice, the Commanders, and the Chiefs
on
Christmas, especially 4 days after playing the Ravens, I wouldn't be like sold on them just yet. The bigger issue is if Russell Wilson gets us to the playoffs, gets us even 1, maybe 2 playoff wins, or even, super optimistic side, gets us the AFC Championship game, he's going to want a big contract in the offseason. He's due a contract at the end of this season. He got a 5-year, $242 million off the Broncos. He turns 37 in the end of November. Is a 37-year-old worth a 5-year deal at, let's say, 100 to 150 million? Because you're not going to give him the 242. And when you look at it as a whole, like 2025 Steelers only currently have 73 million cap space going for the start of next season. And they have a list of free agents that will become casualties if you sign Russell Wilson to a big contract. So like the guys who are currently due to be re-signed next year, Landon Roberts, Justin Fields, Nate Herbig, Najee Harris, Dante Jackson, Jalen Warren, DeMonte Casey, Isaiah Loudermilk, James Daniels, to name a few. And then the other big one is 2026 TJ Watt's contract ends. So you want to get him extended in 2025. Is Russell Wilson worth sacrificing somebody like Najee Harris, for example, to give him that big deal, to keep him in with the Steelers? Or do the Steelers go, thanks for your service, Russell, we're going to roll with Justin Fields for the next couple of years? So that's the big, I know it's great, we're winning, we're looking good, we're beating a bad team, but we're looking good beating a bad team because normally we'd struggle against bad teams. But we got to look at the business side of things. The money next year isn't there, and you kind of need Najee and Jalen. Both are free agents, and Watt's contract's coming up as well. So there's not enough money to go around.
Najee has definitely started proving himself recently. 2 back-to-back games with touchdowns. It's great to see him finally getting scores as well as Pickens getting a score as well. It took them there was a bit of a slow start, but I kind of feel like now, okay, that they're finding their rhythm, and hopefully we'll start seeing more production.
I think me and Twist were talking about it on Saturday night. It was just like talking about kind of the quarterback situation there, and like obviously with the contract coming up, and you kind of have to decide what you're gonna do. But like that last 8 games, 10 games of the season is really gonna determine what happens with the quarterback situation, who you decide to pay, what direction you want to go. Because if Russell goes out now in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks and he is the starter, which he's going to be the starter, let's be honest. And he looks like, if he doesn't look very good, then you have to consider going back to Justin Fields, and you have to consider not paying Russell and saying, you know what, you played well against the Jets and you played well against the Giants, but if you're not going to be able to play well in your conference and in your divisional games, then I don't see why you pay the man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be
too
interesting
many,
to see.
I was going to say, there's just too many cap casualties to sign one guy. I know quarterback is the most important position, but I'm not willing, as a fan, I would not be willing to sacrifice Warren, Najee, Herbig, for example, Loudermilk, and pushed.
Imagine giving up TJ Watt.
Well, not even giving him up.
That's not going to happen ever,
but pushing but not extending TJ Watt and pushing him out to the last year's contract, so he has to do a prove it year, and he goes out and has a monster year, and then you're just hobbled by you're going to have to give him big money to keep him as a Steeler for life. But if you push him to free agent status and make him play his final year of his contract, TJ Watt's the type of guy who's going to go out and going to have a monster season. He could probably, I wouldn't be surprised if you broke the sack record, and then you go, okay, now we have to give you another $50 million on top of what we originally planned.
You just don't want to be in the same situation as Dallas, essentially.
Exactly.
That's the way you got to look at it. Is obviously they don't have the money for Micah Parsons to extend him, because they gave the money to Dak. Now, obviously Dak had been there previously, and he was their guy, but it's you guys are in that transitional phase, coming away from Ben, really trying to find that quarterback for the future. Is a 37-year-old quarterback the future? I don't think so, because we're seeing what's happening with Aaron Rodgers. Same thing, obviously he's a little different, but Russell Wilson's a meme also. He loves being in front of the camera, and he loves all of this media attention. So I feel for you, because obviously Russell has the potential to be a really good quarterback still, but I'd say he only has max 2 years in him, if even that.
And I will say, just keep in mind, final point on that is the Steelers don't let star players run to free agency. So TJ Watt will be getting an extension at some point next season, a big one.
From my perspective, and we'll finish up on the Steelers now, it's still good to see them stacking wins, regardless of who's under center. So that, from my perspective, as long as they keep getting those wins and keep building the offensive production week on week, I'm happy. I mightn't be thrilled, but I'm definitely happy. And just quickly on the defensive side of things, despite the fact that we only had one sack, the defense still made its presence felt. You mentioned Beanie Bishop there. There was also, I think it was a blocked field goal. I think it was blocked field goal. Yeah, and TJ had a back down. So even though there wasn't as much pressure as I would have liked to have seen, it was still overall. They held them to 10 points, 16 points overall, I think. But then you look at another team who are stacking wins at the minute, there are close competitors in the AFC North, and that is the Ravens. And Lamar Jackson continues to build his player of the year case. 5 touchdowns against the Buccaneers. And I watched the highlights there this afternoon, because obviously I was in the air flying back when the game was on. And he looks every bit like the best player in the NFL right now, and should be a shoo-in if they keep going on this trajectory for another MVP award, Kev.
Yeah, but look, I hate to say it, but you have to throw Jared Goff in that conversation. Like,
Yeah.
again, don't love to say it as
But the
a
Lions are another team who are stacking wins in
They,
impressive fashion as
they,
well. I mean, it could well be a Ravens Lions Super Bowl at this stage.
yeah, it very much could be, right. And there's been a lot of like pundits talking about that game between the Vikings and the Lions this weekend. That looked like an NFC Championship game. Like it really did. It was tit for tat. Now, obviously, we shot ourselves in the foot. The Vikings shot themselves in the foot numerous times in that first half, but that second half was a real chess match. And
Yeah.
look, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, like they're doing such a phenomenal job of leading that team. But Jared Goff he is the coordinator. Like he is making that happen. And you look at his QB rating. He had a QB rating of like 140, I think, this weekend, and he was like 22 for 25 throws. Like his completion rate this season has been absolutely phenomenal. Now he doesn't have the legs that Lamar has, so that's where Lamar kind of wins me over a little bit, is because he has that dual threat, and he does look like, I think having Derrick Henry as well has been a massive plus
Derrick
for him.
Henry had another great game on Sunday.
Yeah, it just takes the pressure off Lamar. And so, look, I don't know. I think Bill Belichick said it best yesterday. It was that, once we get to Thanksgiving, like if you're playing mediocre football or really good football until Thanksgiving, and then you start playing poorly, then your season's kind of like, if you don't make the playoffs, then really what's the point? You can look as good as you want right now. It's like the Eagles last year looked phenomenal up until Thanksgiving and then couldn't win a game. They couldn't get out of their own way. So, again, still early season. We're a third of the way through. A lot of football left to be played. But like you said, Lamar and Jared Goff, they're right now my two front runners.
You mentioned Bill Belichick there. I thought it was interesting how he came out in defense of his former players after the London game, where Gerard Mayo called his team soft after that loss, and I thought that's a great way to lose your locker room in an instant. So Bill Belichick didn't hold back in taking issue with that and standing up for his former players. So I mean, look, I just thought that was, look, we're not going to get into it because that's a whole other conversation. But I just thought it was interesting that Bill Belichick effectively selected Mayo as his successor, as his heir apparent, and now they're airing grievances in public. So that's just a situation to monitor to see how things might unfold in New England in the coming weeks. But leading into Sunday, Kev, there were two undefeated teams remaining in the NFL, and that was your Vikings and the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs managed to get it done against the 49ers. And it was really I think it was kind of two elements. Their defense stood up and picked off Purdy 3 times. And Patrick Mahomes basically put the team on his back. I mean, it was a fantastic game to watch.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I hate to say it. Like, the 49ers are not the 49ers that they've been. They just aren't. Like, you've lost out now. And look, losing Brandon Ayuk as well now. They've lost him for the season.
That was massive. Especially after all the money, after the money they gave him. They've no... I mean, it just seemed like anything that could have gone wrong on Sunday went wrong. They lost Ayuk. Debo when he played a couple of snaps.
But he's out. He's going to be out now for 3 to 4 weeks with, I think, pneumonia. They said it is.
He has pneumonia. He has fluid in his lungs. Last I've seen he's currently out indefinitely. Yeah. With minimum 4 weeks.
The 49ers, they're just imploding right now, big time.
George Kittle is going through this toe issue, so he's not 100%. The
only other receiver is the guy who got shot in the chest.
Pearsall.
That's him. Yeah, he's the only receiver they have.
But now they're just in this situation where, they are imploding, like you said, Jim. It's just one thing after another with them, and I think we talked about it pre-season. Was is this kind of boom or bust for 49ers? And it's looking very much like it's going to be a bust year for them, because without Christian McCaffrey, they have been abysmal, and that's regardless of having Ayuk on the field, Debo and Kittle, they still have looked dreadful.
Yeah, I think the window for the 49ers to go back to the Super Bowl was this season.
Mm-hmm.
You could say they might have a shot next season, if everybody's healthy again, if they can keep all the pieces in place. but it's rapidly becoming a situation where they're probably going to revert to maybe division title challengers only. Brock Purdy doesn't look great. Now, in fairness, he has nobody to throw the ball to, but
But it just
look
it
at
just
Mahomes.
it just
Mahomes has
shows you
nobody to
like
throw the ball.
exactly they're in the exact same situation as the Chiefs right now.
Yeah.
And Patrick Mahomes, I just think it could be maybe exposing Brock Purdy his deficiencies and to a certain extent that okay he's been stripped back now. It's just him and a bunch of nobodies really. But Patrick Mahomes is managing to win in Kansas City. I mean you saw there was I think the play that led to his rushing touchdown. He had a little stutter, the little juke, and went and made those extra yards. I mean that's just it's the intangibles like that I think that are gonna that separate the Chiefs from everybody else. And prior to this week, my my NFC Championship matchup was going to be the Lions and either the Vikings or the 49ers. And Kev, you alluded to it there a few minutes ago. Now I think it's definitely going to be the Vikings and the Vikings and the Lions because the Niners in their current shape and form, there's no way they go back to the NFC Championship.
Not with the way they're playing right now. But again, in that NFC bracket, you have to throw in the Packers. They did
Yeah.
beat the Texans this weekend.
And they look great. I mean, there's another quarterback who has fantastic weapons at his disposal. I think there was
absolutely
three receivers had a touchdown for the Packers on Sunday against the Texans.
24-22, I think the final score was. And look, the Texans have struggled against NFC North teams, unfortunately, this year. Like they came into US Bank and got hammered. They've gone to Lambeau now and come away with a loss. So CJ Stroud is also getting a little bit humble this year. So be interesting to see how they finish out the year because, everyone was kind of like, oh, this matchup between the Texans and the Chiefs could be really interesting. But I just don't think there's a team out there right now that's really confident that they could beat the Chiefs. I just don't think there's any team that are like, we can beat these.
The Ravens.
The Ravens are the only team in my mind that come close, and I think it'll be a repeat. It'll be a repeat of the AFC Championship this year, I think.
Yeah, but remember, Lamar can't win in the playoffs. So as good as he is, he's like 38-1 against the NFC in total. Like he owns the NFC conference, but he struggles in the postseason. Well, because the Chiefs are the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes is himself, I can see them winning quite a few more games. I think they'll remain undefeated for quite a bit longer. The only thing, I'm not even going to say the Steelers beat them on Christmas because, that's just jinxing the game. But definitely the only team in the AFC right now who has a chance to deliver a knockout blow to the Chiefs is the Ravens, and that's only because how hard Derrick Henry is running.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have Derrick Henry in the backfield and Lamar who can scramble like crazy, you're devoting too many of your linebackers to cover two running backs at all times. Especially because you look at Derrick Henry, he needs minimum two guys, possibly three to take him down. Lamar, because of his pure elusiveness, you need 2-3 guys to take him down. So there's only so many guys on the field that can cover two players. I don't care if you're the best tackler in the league. I don't care who you are. It's hard to bring those guys down. So I think the Chiefs' biggest threat is the Ravens at this time.
Yeah,
I will say
a fully healthy Ravens squad, but almost. I mean, Mark Andrews is back to full health. He had two fantastic touchdowns against the Buccaneers last night. Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry. I mean, he's a threat in the run game and the passing game. So you look at a fully healthy Ravens side versus the Chiefs, who have Xavier Worthy and Kareem Hunt, and are basically their offense is stuck together with spit and chewing gum. The Ravens right now, in my mind, have the advantage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mahomes can do so much, but the Ravens defense, as we know, Steelers fans, are always hard hitting. They're always relentless in pursuit. Give Mahomes what he has right now, he could probably still squeak out a win because it is Mahomes. But I think the Ravens, fully healthy, have the best shot to dethrone and possibly be an AFC Championship game and stop the three-peat. But then that's the Ravens going to the Super Bowl, and I don't want that.
At this rate, honestly, with the Chiefs, I'd say Lewis Rees Samo could nearly get called up. It's that
Well,
they're that spread thin.
they
He's
might
up,
sign him back from the
yeah,
Jaguars
he's
practice
died,
squad.
yeah. But
He's a
until
receiver. He's a
okay.
receiver now. He's not a running back anymore. He thinks it's a better fit for him to be a receiver, which I personally agree with. Given he's a big guy, obviously, but I think with his skill set, um, he might be a better fit as a receiver. But look, we'll see how that unfolds, lads. Is there anything else we want to touch on from Sunday just gone before we jump into looking at the fixtures, Kev?
I think for myself, I know I don't want to spend too long on it just with the Aaron Rodgers situation still at the Jets. Like they're obviously still struggling quite a bit, even with this firing of Robert Saleh, bringing in Devontae Adams. Like, he gets up on the podium and the first thing he says is, first thing I need to do is stop listening to you guys, the media. I'm like, so this kind of confirms everything that everybody's been saying all year, is that he cares about one thing and one thing only, is that he needs to hear his own voice. And he needs to be front and center, and he needs to be the Jets. As like people have been saying all across the league, is that all these names on the back of their jerseys mean a lot, but none of them are playing for the name on front of the jersey. Like none of them are playing for the Jets, and he has done this. Like he has been the one that has fragmented this team. They have a worse record than they did last year with Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Like, and yet everyone's gonna be like, it's Aaron Rodgers. They can still turn it around. They can still pull it back. They can't. They can't. No. They're gonna get absolutely blown out the rest of the season.
They're done.
Aaron Rodgers is going to be finished by the end of this season. He needs to hang the boots up. I think coming back was an absolute travesty. Yeah. And he's doing
especially for the Jets as well. Like,
but like again, as sports fans, as like people who are into obviously watching the game, the media side of things as well, it's like, what do you do if your quarterback gets up on the stand and says, the first thing I need to do is stop listening to you guys? Because you shouldn't have been listening to us in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, he blamed Saleh, then he blamed the defense, now he's blaming the media. They lose next week. Who's he going to blame? Like when the Patriots beat them, who's he going to blame? Is he going to blame Devontae Adams for not being up to speed?
That Patriots game next week is one game that I definitely will not be paying any attention to because it's going to be an absolute train wreck to watch. But one game,
well,
Kev,
I will say the advantage of the games coming up this week. All the early games are 5 p.m. kickoffs because the clocks are changing.
And it's a bank holiday weekend, which means no work on Monday. We can all stay up for the late games. But Kev,
I have a 1 a.m. start on Thursday, lads. Don't worry. We short week on the road at the Rams, so
exactly. I was just going to say the Rams Vikings is going to be a great game because Kyren Williams is playing his skin off right now. I mean, he's quietly one of the best running backs in the league. And he had 2 touchdowns on Sunday as well. So for me, as early as it is in the week, I think that's probably one of the top games that I'm looking forward to this weekend. Weekend.
Cooper Kupp is looking likely to be back. I think that's what Sean McVay was saying in his presser yesterday. So yeah, I mean, look, if Cooper Kupp is back, I think it'll be a lot tighter of a game than I first initially thought. And now I do think that, from all reports, I thought TJ Hawkinson was supposed to be back last weekend. I think it was a last minute decision to not have him play. But I think this is the week that they'll unleash him, and if they do, I think there's a lot of fire in his belly to really perform and really show off. So I'm really excited about the Vikings this week. I think Brian Flores is going to have really dug into the defense because there was a lot of mistakes, like some poor decision making on Sam Darnold's part, but I think the defense really didn't step up, especially against the run game. Now, again, the Lions obviously have Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, so 2 of the better running backs in the league. But again, I think you just need to be able to shut that down a small bit more than they did.
Twist, what's your top fixture? Is there any games that stand out to you as being, or will it be a red zone weekend, considering that the Steelers don't play?
Just looking at the fixtures, until what happened last night, my top game of the week was the Buccaneers Falcons. Were both Evans and Godwin gone for the season.
Oh, I can't believe we didn't even touch on that. What is going on with star players dropping like flies? I mean, 2 of Baker Mayfield's top threats. And we saw what happened when they both went out. Like he's no one to rely on. Like
Yeah, and that's it. Like if they were still in play, Kirk Cousins versus Baker Mayfield, that would have been a shootout between them two. But just looking at the fixtures, like there's no one that really stands out. Maybe the Seahawks, Bills. Other than that, it's a lot of divisional games,
yeah,
but it's also like a lot of meh. I'd say if I'm going to pick, like off looking at the two of them now, Jaguars are going to get absolutely hammered by the Packers. They're going to be brought down to earth fast after their London win. But I'm going to go out on a limb and, call me insane, call me crazy. If Jameis Winston starts for the Browns are going to upset the Ravens.
ooh, that's
No,
a bold
get out of here.
bold
If
call.
Jameis Winston, he has that. You going to eat a W with Jameis Winston? You want to eat a W cake?
That is absolutely what I can't believe you just
I
said
think
that.
that might be the
It's
wildest.
the ultimate trap game of the week.
To be honest with you, that's the wildest take you've ever had.
Yeah, I think
Welcome to
we
Crackdown.
found our reel for Instagram this week.
We will have to say Michael Penix Jr. is a 100% completion rate as a rookie in the NFL. So there you go. That's another storyline for you.
Because before, like, the other big game would have been the Commanders and the Bears, just purely for Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. But we don't know whether Jaden Daniels is going to go or not. So if he goes and if he's protected and he can stay in the game, that'll be a game to watch. That'll be one where I'd actually watch rather than Red Zone, purely because the two rookies going head to head, number one overall. Was Daniels 3 or 4? I can't remember. But like two top 5 draft picks facing off, and I think if Daniel Daniels is going to go, he's going to show up Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I mean, we've been saying it the whole time along. I mean, he's definitely in two of them. He is the superior player, and you've seen that in his performance. He doesn't look like a rookie. He came out absolutely swinging, and he hasn't slowed down since. I think he's barely made any mistakes. I think he might have 2 total interceptions all season long, and like he's just playing with his hair on fire. So long may that continue, because I've never really paid attention to the Commanders because they've just been awful since I've been an NFL fan. But now I'm like really, really rooting for Jaden Daniels as a player and as a person. So
I'm not.
long may and why? Because we didn't even mention them as an NFC contender. They completely slipped my mind there. But even Dan Quinn, I have a lot of time for Dan Quinn from his Seattle days as defensive coordinator there and before. Lads, before we wrap this up, are there any other thoughts or takes ahead of week 8? We are almost halfway through the NFL season, which is insane to think about. And it's just been an absolute emotional roller coaster so far. But before we finish up, I do want to say thank you to the Steelers again for a fantastic weekend. If you are listening, if Steelers fans are listening, I know there's a few of you out there, you got to get to a game in Pittsburgh. It's just, it's a different place, and the atmosphere is incredible. But Kev, I saw you're about to jump in there.
No, I think just I know I sent it into you guys earlier about the kind of the drug testing within the NFL, and I just, again, as somebody who's been in an Olympic sport in running, is like if an Olympic team wins a 4x100, 4x400, and one person on that team, whether they're a substitute or a person who runs the race, tests positive for any sort of PEDs, they get all of their results removed for the past 2 years, and they're like that person is then banned for the next 2 years.
This is the NFL, though. It's not it's not athletics.
No,
it's an entertainment industry.
It is, but at the same time, what standard are they setting by saying, "Oh, okay, you're going to be banned for 2 games," and there's no real kind of follow up to see if they're not taking the PEDs anymore, and then there's no like Twist was saying, is that there's no record, or there has been no record of any teams ever being penalized for a player testing positive. So that there's no draft picks lost. There's no points or like any sort of penalized penalties during the season. So really, where's the incentive for players to not do it? It's like, if I had that same concept as a runner, and IAAF said to me, "All right, Kev, you can take as many drugs as you want, but if you get busted, you're only done for 2 races. And then you can come back." Then I'll be like, "Grand, I'll take as much drugs as I need, get popped for 2 races, and then 2 races later, I'm even better than I was.
Yeah, as far as I'm
We're
aware,
definitely getting off topic here, and we're at 45 minutes. So Twist, keep your response brief.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as I'm aware, they start taking money from players, which is where it hits them the most, and the players then subject to random tests for the rest of the season. No, like, 'cause most players get notified, go, you're testing like on Tuesday or whatever. Infamously, Chris Boswell kicked like multiple field goals a couple of years ago, and the day after he got a notification from the NFL going, we're
Be
testing you.
randomly tested.
But yeah, you're tested at random for the rest of the season. They start hitting you in the money if it's a repeat offender, but they don't. As far as someone out there might prove me wrong, but my memory, my history of watching the sport, I don't see a team being penalised in wins or draft picks in the modern era. And let's put it this way: in the pre-modern era, the old school era, ain't going to be nothing like that because, you know, it was the 70s and 80s, nobody cared. In the 60s. But yeah,
But
other than that, I think
there's a whole different podcast on this. So let's leave it there.
For week 8, like, my only prediction is Daniel Jones is benched at the end of the first quarter because TJ Watt and the Steelers are just going to eat him alive.
Definitely going to have to keep an eye out for that.
Giants going to shock the Steelers coming in this week. Russell Wilson.
I highly doubt that. We're going to sweep the New York teams. We're going to sweep the New York teams. Well, the New York teams will actually play in or around New York City, who aren't actually even technically New York teams and New Jersey teams. But anyway, lads, always a pleasure to talk football. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll talk soon.